back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Ullman, and today we've got the Champs at the end of 2025 segment, one of my favorite segments every year. An opportunity to guess who the champ will be at the end of this year. It's such a fun game because you have to look at so many different things, not just who's in each division, but like how many times will each guy fight? If this guy loses, will there be a rematch? There's so much that goes into it, and I really enjoy it. But before we do that, we have to check in on who I said would be the champs at this moment. Who would be the champs at the end of 2024? Me and Jackson went on a podcast last year and predicted who we thought would be the champ in each division at this moment. And I'm here to tell you, it's not great. It's not great. 125. Pantoja was my guess, and I got that correct. Pantoja is the champion. It was pretty safe, honestly, looking back at it, and I think it's the right move. Honestly, moving forward, I think it's the right move. This guy just has the wrestling is such a big key for him, and there's contenders in the division without a doubt, right? Guys like Rival and Kopp and different guys, but he has the entire skill set. And in this division right now, he's the perfect guy. When you're looking at champs at the end of the year, he's the perfect guy that you want to bet on. So I went with Pantoja, and I got that right. And I'll just warn you guys, I didn't get much else right. So I was happy to start off with a correct guess at 125. 135, I said Sean O'Malley. Obviously wrong. Sean O'Malley lost to Merab. And going back, I listened to the podcast. I wasn't necessarily wrong. I mean, I was obviously wrong, but my explanation was this. I didn't think he was going to beat Merab, but I just said the UFC would be smart enough not to give him Merab yet this year. I said they'll give him Cheeto, which we already knew, and then they'll give him somebody else because he can't beat Merab. So looking back, had I known that him and Merab were going to fight, I would have picked Merab, but that's just a sorry excuse. 145, I picked Volk. Obviously wrong there. Ilya won it and defended it. Again, I didn't realize Ilya was going to win that dominantly. My guess on the pod was that Ilya was going to win. It was going to be a close fight, and then they would rematch, and Volk would get it back. Obviously, we weren't even close to that because Ilya just dominated. And so obviously Ilya won it, defended it against Holloway. 155, I said Arman Tsarukyan. Once again, there's a solid excuse here, right? We're getting the fight in a week and a half. The fight was supposed to happen, right? So when this pod comes out, I don't know if it'll be a week and a half. Maybe the fight will be over by then. But we were supposed to get this fight. Islam got hurt. We didn't get the fight. So if Arman wins against Islam, I'm going to take credit and say I got this one right. The fight was going to happen. We were going to find out. 170, I said Shavkat. Once again, an injury got in the way. Shavkat was going to get the title shot. I certainly didn't guess that it was going to be against Bilal, but he did get the title shot, and he was going to get that, and then there was an injury. So Bilal got hurt, so Shavkat didn't get his chance. So I was a couple injuries away from maybe Shavkat and Arman both getting it and getting both of those right. It didn't work out that way. 185, I said Izzy. Just couldn't be more wrong with that one. Obviously, Izzy did get the title shot against Dricus, lost. Dricus is your champ there. I thought Izzy was going to be my guess was he was going to go on a crazy revenge tour and just knock a bunch of guys out, and that did not happen. 205, I got this wrong again, but it was about as close as you could do. I said Khalil Roundtree. I took a shot in the dark. I said Khalil Roundtree is on a heater right now. And I looked past Jamal Hill and Yuri Prochazka. And by the way, we didn't know Alex Pereira was going to fight 3 times this year. But he did. And Khalil Roundtree obviously was the last of those 3 and gave Alex Pereira the toughest chance out of all those. So he gave Pereira a very tough fight. He won maybe the first round, maybe the second round. Obviously did get finished. But I also didn't know, at the end of last year, we had just seen Pereira beat Jan and Yuri. And the Jan fight was super close. The Yuri fight, Yuri had his moments. And we didn't have Superman Pereira, which we do now. Had we seen that Pereira then, which I understand he knocked out Yuri, it was a somewhat close fight. We didn't have the Pereira that was just knocking everybody out in the first round. So I learned my lesson. I'll take Pereira this year. And then heavyweight, I'll give myself like half right on this one. I said Tom Aspinall. Obviously, we got the Jones Stipe fight, and Jones won, and Aspinall still the interim champ. So Jones is still the champ at heavyweight, but I'll take half. So I got 1.5 right out of all of those. But barring a few injuries, I did better than the numbers say. The stats don't tell the entire picture here. But with that, hoping to do better this next year. And so without further ado, let's get into that. 125. I'm taking Pantoja again. This guy, like I said, he's got the whole skill set. He's got really exactly what you want in this division if you're picking a guy to be champ at the end of the year. I mean, we can expect probably 2 more fights from Pantoja, I'd say is safe to say this year. Maybe 1. Maybe it would work out that he only gets 1 in, but he seems to be fairly active. So I think we might get 2 from him this year. Listen, your main contenders, you've got the Royval and Kopp fight. The other guys, I mean, we've seen it. There's obviously Moreno, and Kai Kara-France is obviously coming off a big win. Me personally, I think the biggest challenger this year is going to be Royval. The way Royval fought against Tatsuro Taira was impressive. And I think Royval's going to beat Manel Kopp. As much as I love Manel Kopp, I think Royval's going to beat him. I think Cobb can like dance and knock these guys out all he wants later in, deeper in the rankings in flyweight. But Royval is a skilled striker. And I think Royval's going to take care of him. And I understand Royval's lost a couple times now to Pantoja. But I think he might be revitalizing that career a little bit. At 135, I said Umar. I mean, to me, it's obvious. It's either Umar or Merab. We're just in a point, especially in this division, where I just do not, O'Malley, maybe, but I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to bet on any striker in this division, as good as they are, Sandhagen or anybody, to compete with Umar and Merab. These are high-leveled wrestlers, and I haven't even made my pick for that fight yet. Basically, I'm making my pick here because if I doubt we'll get a rematch of that fight this year. So whoever wins that fight, I think, is the champ at the end of the year. I guess I'm picking Umar because I'm taking Umar here. I just think Umar could take advantage of the striking matchup there. A lot of times when you get 2 wrestlers like that, you end up getting more striking than you would imagine. So I'm going to take Umar in that one. 145, I'm taking Ilia Topuria. Diego Lopez seems like the big challenger here, right? And I wouldn't be surprised at all. Diego's an absolute stud. We all know that. But Ilia's, he's just as good, and I think better. So with Diego, the Dan Ige fight, it's hard to know that the whole weight thing, and didn't even think he was gonna fight Dan Ige or even anyone for a little bit there probably. So I take that with a grain of salt. But listen, Ilia is finishing guys. Diego Lopez is doing really well, but it really comes down to, is there a hole in anybody's game? And I think there's maybe a little bit more of a hole in Diego Lopez's game than Ilia. So I'm taking Ilia, but I would not be surprised to see Diego there. 155, Arman Tsarukyan. I said it. I picked it last year. I got to pick it again. He's going to beat Islam, and he's going to keep it. This guy's an animal. 170, I'm taking Shavkat Rakhmonov. This is a tough one. 170, I had a tough one here. I wouldn't be surprised if Bilal kept it. Not high on Bilal before, but man, if he can stick to the game plan of what he did against Leon, he can hold on to this thing for a little bit, in my opinion. He could beat a lot of guys in this division. And then you've got Shavkat, who I've always said it felt like just a matter of time before he gets it. But maybe he showed a little more holes in the Ian Gary fight that we hadn't seen previously. So listen, Ian Gary's still a name in the division. Joaquin Buckley, seriously, this guy's on an absolute tear. So I would not be surprised to see Buckley. Carlos Prates could make a run at it this year. I think he's probably a year out of a title shot yet, but he's going to make a run at it without a doubt. And even Kamaru Usman. I mean, heck, if Usman got a title shot against Bilal, he could easily get it. JDM could get it. There's a lot of guys that could, if they get this matchup against Bilal, that could get it. So it's going to come down to matchmaking and how many times Bilal fights and those kind of things. I'm going to take Shavkat. I think it's the safe bet. But man, that's probably the toughest division. There's a lot of guys that could win it at 170. But I'll go Shavkat. 185. It's the year I'm finally picking it, right? We've had all these years where it's like, when do we pick him? When's he going to get the shot, basically? And I have no doubt that Khamzat Chimaev is getting the title shot this year. Finally. It took long enough, but he's finally going to get the title shot. Well overdue. But he's going to get it, obviously, barring injury, which is like huge, barring like all of the crazy stuff that's happened in his career, which could definitely happen again. He might not get it because of that stuff. If he can stay healthy and travel and all those things, this dude's getting the title shot. And him and Drick is like a huge, it's on my top 10 fights I want to see this year. It is a fantastic fight. And listen, I don't think Strickland's going to challenge much. Even if Strickland does beat Drickus, I think he loses it by the end of the year. And Izzy, we'll see how he looks against Imavov. But I think this Khamzat Drickus fight's going to happen, and Khamzat's going to win. I think he's going to win convincingly. 205, like I said, I learned my lesson. Alex Pereira, come on, it has to. The only way it's not Pereira is if he vacates, moves up to heavyweight, and someone takes it. Like, there's no way anyone is beating this guy. I don't care. Magomed Ankalaev, I do not care. Izzy moves up, I don't care. Khamzat Chimaev moves up, I don't care. Alex Pereira is beating everybody this year. In a couple years, he's getting older, but the guy is just dominating right now. You can't pick against him. And then speaking of dominating, my pick for heavyweight is Tom Aspinall. Dominant. So, an interesting situation. The fight with Jones happens. I think he beats Jones. But if the fight with Jones doesn't happen, Jones either has to make the fight happen or retire. He can't just, I understand he's making that decision now, but it's hopefully going to be made by the end of the year. Hopefully by the end of the year, we either know if he's retiring or if the fight's happening. Because if he's retiring, the division needs to move on. And if the division moves on, there's only one king of the division. That's Tom Aspinall. Everybody knows that. He's been so dominant. He's been so good. So that is it. You could say my picks are a lot safer this year than last year. It's probably right, but I think we're going to see a lot less movement. When you look at our champions, and I'm saying, Pantoja, pretty dominant. Umar, dominant. Ilya, dominant. Arman Sarukian, dominant. Shavkat, Khamzat Pereira, Aspinall. These are guys that are not going to give up their titles much this year. Last year, there was a lot of moving around. There were guys who were very vulnerable that were holding titles, like Leon Edwards, like Sean O'Malley. And we're getting to a point where a lot of these guys are wrestlers. Pantoja, Umar, Ilya can wrestle. Arman, Shavkat, Khamzat, Aspinall. Serious wrestlers where a lot of these guys, even if they're in trouble in fights, they'll just take you down and win there. These are guys that are not very vulnerable. And your strikers that aren't much of wrestlers, Alex Pereira. Ilya, the best strikers in our game. So I think we're in a position where we're going to see a lot of dominance at the top when it comes to title fights this year, which is good. It's fun when things are changing around. It's also fun when you get champions that are there for a long time, because the longer a champion is there, the more familiar fans can get with them, right? That's obviously how it works. And so when you're trying to draw in the casual fan, as good as a fight as Ilya and Diego could be this year, it's not going to be as big as it should, because fans just aren't familiar with those guys as much. But if Ilya gets 6 title defenses and then he fights an up-and-comer, it's a different story, because people know the name Ilya Topuria. So I think it'll be a good year. I think it'll be a year where a lot of guys hold their titles after Umar and Arman grab their titles at 35 and 55 respectively. And so, yeah, that's my That's my picks. Not sure when this video is going to come out. Could be after the point where Arman and Umar have won their titles. But we will see. That is it, and I cannot wait to come back to this a year from now, just as I did with last year's, and hopefully I got more than 1.5 right. Hopefully it's a clean sweep this year. We'll see. But with that, I am Austin. Thanks for tuning in to Fight Talk. We'll see you next time.